Hello and welcome to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. Happy Valentine's Day! This means it's the 45th day of ranking my favorite video games through each day of the year. Coming in at number 322 is Animal Crossing: New Horizons. I suspect this may be a surprisingly poor ranking for a very loved game for many people. Before you get out the pitchforks, I want to say that Animal Crossing holds a special place in my heart, and that's why this game didn't even make it to March. That being said, I still have a lot of great things to say about the game, and there's a lot to do. So buckle in for my longest video yet and buy a lot. If you're unfamiliar with the Animal Crossing franchise, you play as an apparently rare human being in an animal world, and you have no money but need a place to live. In most of the games, you're a new person that's just moved to whatever town, but in this one, you are on an island. Entrepreneurial raccoon Tom Nook functionally gives you a house and somehow goes on to build up an extremely successful business empire. You technically owe him money, but there's no interest on your loan at all. There is incentive to pay off the loan, however, as once the initial loan is paid off, you can take out a series of increasingly large loans in order to keep adding on rooms and floors to your house. So you make a big house. Then what? You can decorate the house with a massive assortment of furniture, wallpaper, flooring, and little decorative items. There's a ton of ways to amass this collection. The easiest way is to buy things at the island's general store, Nook's Cranny. You can also find items by digging them up from the ground or shaking trees and having them fall out. If that seems weird to you, it's important to realize that every piece of furniture in this franchise is symbolized by a leaf. Coffee mug? Leaf. Lamp? Leaf. Bed? Leaf. Entire Gundam-style mech suit? You guessed it, leaf. Although speaking of the Gundam, that's actually not something you'll find at the store or around your island. In New Horizons, there's an entire crafting system where you can take gathered raw materials and make, then customize the colors with a crafting table. Lastly, you can receive all sorts of items from other people on your island as gifts. The absolute core of the gameplay in Animal Crossing is management of friendships with your neighbors. There are hundreds of animal people that can live on your island in New Horizons, although you only get access to a handful at a time. Each villager has their own personality, appearance, and catchphrases that you'll discover as your relationship with them builds up. Over time, as they become friends, you can start gifting items to them and they'll usually return the favor and even start sending you stuff in the mail just because they like you. Customization of your villagers is a major part of the game to a lot of players in order to try to get their island to a very specific aesthetic and vibe. I've never bothered to really go out of my way to craft my villager assortment, but elephants are my favorite animal, so I'd probably try to get an island of all elephants if I wanted to put in the effort. The villagers are all pretty charming in their own way, and it's the real legs that the entire franchise stands upon. In addition to forming meaningful friendships with fake characters, the game simulates other real-life aspects in the form of the passage of time. While you can edit the Switch's date and time settings to pseudo-time travel, the game does operate in real time with lots of festivals, holidays, and even birthdays to commemorate throughout the year. As seasons change, so does the weather, and you'll find all sorts of unique items and things to do during all of these events, giving reason to keep coming back to the game, even if you've put it down for a while. Okay, so you've put a bunch of stuff in your house. What do you get for it other than a cool place to call your own? There's actually a ranking system called the Happy Home Academy that gives you a numerical score for the interior decorating of your home. As you cross certain thresholds for the first time, you can get cool trophies and other rewards. If you wanted a way to measure if you beat the game, I'd argue you're playing the wrong franchise, but this is probably one of the better ways to consider it done. In addition to decorating your house, you unlock the ability to decorate and entirely landscape the whole island. Everything from rivers to hills to placement of buildings is yours to command. Some people have done this to make cool art out of their maps or recreate actual real-life locations in-game. Others go a more practical route and just try to have a functional, civil-engineered place to live and visit. Did I say visit? I did! Beating the loose story of New Horizons involves getting your island decorated to the point that it becomes a popular vacation destination, encouraging franchise musician superstar KK Slider to visit your island and hold a concert. You can listen to him play and get a song that you can put into radios and such throughout the town to play music in that space. This is also how they show the credits for the game, letting you know that there's no more real progression to be had after that point, which doesn't stop most people from putting in another few, 1,000 hours. In addition to KK Slider, a large cast of other characters visit your island. For starters, it's how you attract new villagers. If you have an open slot in your island for someone to live, you can invite animals that camp out at your island to live there permanently. But each day, you'll have a special visitor, usually specializing in some aspect of the game. There's an outrageous amount of things to collect in these games, and some of the special visitors are the only way to get certain items, so you'll want to check the island every day for them. Getting a large cast of NPCs to interact with is great, but what's even better is playing with friends. Via Bluetooth connections with other nearby consoles, or over the internet, you can visit other players' islands in order to check out their shops, have a look around, and meet new characters. It's even one of the only ways to get certain items, such as different species of fruit. I've mentioned the prevalence of shopping and loans in the game, but haven't actually talked about how to get money yet. Most of your income, time-wise, will come from you just finding and selling items. There's a few special tricks though, and one major moneymaker if you put in the effort. You can go fishing, catch bugs, dig up fossils, and go diving for more marine life. Everything can be sold, even weeds. Each day, there's 2 items that can be sold for a higher percentage of their value than normal to Nook's Cranny, which you can make via crafting. Common materials are wood and sticks from trees, and clay, rocks, and iron from, rocks. I mentioned some special ways to get money. Each day, you can find a glowing spot on the ground somewhere on your island. If you dig it up, you'll get money. But what's not obvious is that you can bury up to 10,000 bells, the currency in the game, and then it will regrow into a literal money tree that'll give you a one-time repayment of 3 times whatever you put in. Another daily way to get money is to find a money rock. Each day you can hit a rock with your shovel a certain number of times, and it gives you those crafting materials I talked about. However, one of the rocks each day will instead spit out bells. The biggest way to get money, however, is the stock market. On Sundays, there's a special island visitor who sells turnips. All of the other days of the week, you can resell those turnips to Nook's Cranny at a price that changes twice each day. If you're patient, you can make a huge profit margin off this, but you have to time it right. If you wait too long, the turnips will go rotten and you won't be able to sell them anymore. That's where visiting other islands comes in. When this game launched in the middle of the pandemic, I had nothing but time and worked with total strangers on the internet to check the stock market and maximize my profits. On Sundays, I'd go to the island that had the lowest sell price, then at some point in the week, I'd find an island with an insane buy price and flip them all to make millions of bells. I was rolling in money. I eventually stopped bothering with it after I had finished all the ways I could upgrade my house and had a nice little nest egg, but it was a wild time. I did mention selling fish, bugs, and fossils. Selling them is hardly the only thing you can do with them, and in fact, it's not their primary function. On your island, you build a museum, which is run by my favorite character in the franchise, an owl named Blathers. This museum is pretty massive as you accumulate a collection there of bugs, fish, fossils, deep marine life, and paintings. Fish, bugs, and other marine life are pretty obvious on how to gather them, but how do you get the fossils and the paintings? You dig up unidentified fossils from the ground and take them to Blathers, who will assess them and figure out what they are, then offer to accept them as donations if the museum doesn't have that specimen yet. For paintings, one of the special visitors is Red, a sketchy salesman on a boat. He sells genuine works of art alongside less than genuine works of art. If you're familiar with classic art, you can recognize the real ones from the fakes, otherwise you'll have to Google most of them like me. I love the museum, it's my favorite place in all of New Horizons. From the really calming music to Blathers' endless fountain of knowledge on the specimens you donated, to even the cute little cafe nestled inside, every time I enter the museum in New Horizons, I'm reminded I live in the cultural wasteland that is the American Midwest, and I wish I could be somewhere else. Speaking of cultural wastelands and not being in them, there's a lot of clothing options in this game. In addition to Nook's Cranny, there's a clothing shop on the island called Able Sisters, run by, you guessed it, the Able Sisters. They have a daily rotating inventory of clothes to pursue, all in a wide variety of styles and colors. There's a lot of really fun outfits you can put together, and eventually you can craft a magic wand that lets you save several outfits and swap between them at will. On top of the wide array of official designs in the game, the community can make their own patterns and then share them publicly online. Here, I have a custom pattern someone made for me to look like my favorite comic book character, Doctor Strange. If you're really serious about customizing the appearance of not only your character, but also your island itself, these custom patterns are an absolute must. While on the topic of customization, I mentioned you can sort of terraform the island, but you can also make a design for an island flag as well as a town song. My island is named Ike Island after my dog, and the flag is a terrible pixel drawing I did of him with hearts that accidentally made him look like he's flexing enormous biceps. My town song is an excerpt of a song my wife and I wrote for Ike as a puppy. I got part of the idea for the layout of my island by visiting other random islands in the form of dreams. You can't normally visit other islands if one of the players that lives there isn't also online and accepting visitors. However, you can save the state of your island in a specific point of time to upload for others to dreamwalk to it. It's amazing some of the stuff people have done with their islands, and I so don't have the time or patience to figure out even half of the things others have. The vast majority of things I've talked about so far exist in other titles in the franchise, although often with fewer options than in New Horizons. But there's two things that are really great that were new with this title. First is Nook Miles. Basically, it's an achievement system that earns you points to buy special, exclusive furniture and island decorations. You can also just convert them to bells or buy tickets to go visit random nearby islands, which is a great way to get crafting materials that you're low on without having to wait for your rocks and such to refresh each day. There's two different kinds of achievements. First, you have small ones, like catch 5 fish or talk to 3 neighbors, that give you a small amount of miles but change every day and instantly refresh whenever you complete one. For lots of miles all at once, there's more traditional style achievements, but for things like successfully catching a fish 100 times in a row, which gives not only huge amounts of miles, but also titles you can customize your character with. When other players view your island, they can also view your character profile and they'll see the titles you assigned. I love the Nook Miles system as it solves one of the biggest problems the franchise has always had, which was giving a sense of direction for what to do. There's so many activities and things to work on at any given time, it could feel a bit overwhelming, and this can at least help you narrow it down to focus on 1 or 2 things at a time. The second thing that's new with New Horizons is actually only available if you buy the Happy Home Paradise DLC. Basically, you're hired to do interior decorating for people's dream vacation homes on this other nearby group of islands. You'll have clients that tell you what they're interested in, and then you can choose from a massive library of the game's content and decorate the space however you see fit. Based on how much they like what you've done, you'll be paid in a new currency that's exclusive to that island, where you can buy all sorts of new furniture, clothes, and other items you can't get anywhere else. That's all to say, more stuff to collect. This function was sorely needed and greatly adds to the replayability of the game, especially for people that don't care about trying to craft the perfect island. My biggest complaint with the DLC is that it was even DLC to begin with. I felt like it should have been part of the game from the get-go. As much as there's more stuff and also new stuff in New Horizons, it's missing elements from previous titles that I'll be covering in detail with future videos, which is one of the main reasons this is my worst ranking Animal Crossing game. That's just one reason though. The really big reason this game ranks poorly is the amount of things in this game that were incredible ideas with absolutely horrible execution. Right off the bat, the game promised couch co-op, which it technically has, but you essentially have a host player and everyone else is severely limited in what they can do. I've spent this whole video talking about how many awesome things there are to do in the game, but glossed over the barriers to actually doing them. I love the magic wands, being able to swap outfits, but you know what you can't do while wearing those outfits? Buy clothes at the clothing store, change clothes from a wardrobe, go diving, do those dream island visits. The diving thing shouldn't be an issue because you can just wear a diving suit underneath your magic wand, but then put the wand outfit away and go diving. But you know what you can't do while wearing a diving suit? Buy clothes at the clothing store, change clothes from a wardrobe, go to sleep and go to the Dream Islands. Who decided that these things needed to be barriers to playing the game? So let's say you want to buy clothes at Able Sisters. You put away your magic wand outfit, take off your diving suit. You hop in the dressing room and start browsing. There's well over 1,000 different clothing items in the game, so how do you know if you already own something and have it in storage? Well, unless you track that manually with a third-party app, you don't, unless you go and look, then come back to the store. This also goes for any furniture or something you want to buy from Nook's Cranny. This isn't a problem exclusive to New Horizons, as it's an issue in every title for the series, but how, after 20 years of these games, with increasingly large amounts of just stuff, has a simple inventory counter or symbol not been implemented? You know where else it would be helpful? Crafting. In order to craft, I have to first look at the recipe to know what items I need to grab, then figure out how many I want to make, do the math, figure out how many of each material I need, then leave the crafting window, go into my storage, grab the items, go back to crafting, and make each item one by one. Why can't I just queue up 10 of something at once and have the crafting window just allow me to craft from storage? Stardew Valley figured this out, and that's one guy that made that game. You're telling me that Nintendo couldn't figure out how to implement something one guy figured out, regardless of how amazing and talented the one guy is? Speaking of Nintendo, their allergy to cohesive online play experiences in the name of privacy and safety really is a hindrance to this game. I mentioned all the work I put into the stock market. It was work. First, the host island has to go to the airport and go through like 5 menus to turn on their internet, then go through another 3 menus to confirm they want to allow visitors, and then they have to get their code for the island and text it or whatever to the visiting players, who then have to go to the same 5 menus to connect to the internet, then another 3 menus to indicate they want to visit an island, and then put in the code, which generates a loading cutscene, which is understandable, but this also interrupts everyone on both the host island and your own island to make a giant announcement with another cutscene that someone is either leaving or arriving. This whole process takes several minutes for each time someone comes over or leaves, and should really take like 2 menus and 20 seconds with next to no needed involvement from the host. In short, Animal Crossing New Horizons is just oozing with character and charm, and I love it to pieces. But it's constantly stepping on its own feet and getting in the way of a really great, fun play experience, which is what keeps me from being absolutely addicted to this game rather than just merely enjoying it. That being said, I mean it when I said I love it to pieces, and that's why it's on my rankings, even if it's not as high as maybe it deserves. Join me tomorrow as I talk about the 321st game on my list.